She is one of the most important women in the Bible. Yet she wasn't a queen or a prophetess. She wasn't even an Israelite, but a foreign widow from Moab. She had no wealth, no status, and no future. Her husband was gone. Her homeland offered her nothing, and the only road ahead led to poverty and uncertainty. Yet in her darkest moment, she made a choice of loyalty, love, and faith. She left behind her people, her gods, and her past to follow her mother-in-law Naomi into a land where she would be an outsider. But what seemed like a hopeless journey was actually the beginning of a divine destiny. Her name was Ruth, and through her faith, God not only redeemed her story, but placed her in the family line of Israel's greatest king and the Messiah himself. The story of Ruth takes place in the days when the judges ruled. This was a turbulent era in Israel's history after the death of Joshua and before the rise of the monarchy under Saul and David. The nation had no king, and the people often fell into cycles of disobedience, idolatry, foreign oppression, repentance, and deliverance. Morality was unstable, and Scripture records everyone did what was right in his own eyes. During this time, a famine struck the land of Judah. Even Bethlehem, whose name means house of bread, offered no bread to its people. The irony was bitter. The fields that once yielded barley and wheat now lay barren. Crops withered, food became scarce, storehouses emptied, and survival grew uncertain. In Bethlehem lived a man named Elimelech, whose name meant, "My God is King." He was married to a woman named Naomi, whose name meant pleasant. Together they had 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. As the famine worsened, Elimelech faced a choice no father would make lightly: to uproot his family and leave the land God had promised to his people. With survival at stake, he chose to lead them eastward, across the Jordan River, into the territory of Moab. Moab was a land often in conflict with Israel. Its people worshipped the god Chemosh and had a history of hostility towards the Israelites. Yet, at this moment, Moab offered food and stability that Judah could not. Life in Moab, however, did not bring the relief Naomi may have hoped for. Shortly after settling there, tragedy struck. Elimelech, the father and head of the family, died. Naomi, now a widow, found herself in a precarious and vulnerable position. In Moab, as in many ancient societies, a woman's status and security were intimately tied to her husband. Without Elimelech, Naomi faced a future of uncertainty, with few rights or protection, and her sons, still young men, became her only remaining support. In time, Mahlon and Chilion each married Moabite women. Mahlon married Ruth, and Chilion married Orpah. For about 10 years they lived in Moab. The sons worked, the wives managed their households, and Naomi did what she could to care for the family. Then grief struck again. Both Mahlon and Chilion died. She had already lost her husband, and now her sons. It was a profound blow to Naomi. She was left completely bereft, a mother without children, a widow without a husband, and a foreigner without community. Now Naomi, Ruth, and Orpah stood together as 3 widows, bound by grief and circumstance, vulnerable in a society where women without husbands had little security or provision. Naomi's heart must have felt the weight of despair. She had left her home to survive famine, only to lose everything that gave life meaning. Word reached Naomi that the Lord had visited his people and given them food again. The famine in Judah had ended, or at least diminished. Bethlehem once more had bread. With no reason to remain in Moab and longing for her homeland, Naomi resolved to return. Her daughters-in-law set out with her, but along the way Naomi stopped. She turned to Ruth and Orpah with a heavy heart and spoke with compassion, but also with resignation.
Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband."
Her words were both blessing and encouragement. She released them from obligation, urging them to return to their families, where they might remarry and secure their own futures. Both daughters-in-law protested, insisting they would go with her to her people. But Naomi pressed further. She explained the hopelessness of their situation. She had no more sons to offer them as husbands. She was too old to remarry and bear more children. Following her meant embracing widowhood and poverty in a foreign land. Orpah wept at Naomi's words. She loved her mother-in-law and was reluctant to leave. But after heavy weeping, she chose to return to her people and her gods. Her departure was sorrowful but understandable. Her loyalty, while genuine, could not override the pull of her homeland and the promise of a new life. She disappears from the biblical record after this, remembered for her grief but also for her decision to remain in her homeland. But Ruth clung to Naomi. The Hebrew word used here is the same one used of a man clinging to his wife in covenant loyalty. It expresses deep commitment. Naomi urged her again to follow Orpah back to her people and her gods. But Ruth made a declaration of devotion that would echo through history.
"Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us."
Ruth's words marked a turning point. She not only committed herself to Naomi, but also embraced the God of Israel as her own, leaving behind her nation, her own culture, family, and gods to identify fully with Naomi's people and faith. Naomi must have been moved beyond words. Here was a Moabite widow, willing to leave her own life behind to accompany her into the unknown. Seeing Ruth's steadfastness, Naomi said no more, and the two women traveled on together until they arrived in Bethlehem. When Naomi entered Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred. The women of the city exclaimed, "Is this Naomi?" Years of grief and loss had aged her. She responded with bitterness.
"Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi, when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?"
Her declaration was deeply meaningful. The name Naomi means pleasant or delightful, but in her grief, she felt anything but pleasant. By asking to be called Mara, meaning bitter, Naomi expressed the depth of her loss. She believed her life had been stripped of joy by God's hand. The timing of Naomi and Ruth's arrival was significant. Scripture notes, "And they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest." This detail is significant, for the barley harvest marked the start of the agricultural season, and with the harvests beginning in Bethlehem, Ruth faced the practical challenge of providing food for herself and Naomi, as she had no property and no means of support. In Israelite law, God had commanded landowners not to reap their fields to the edges or gather what was left behind. The poor, the foreigner, the widow, and the orphan had the right to glean from the leftovers. This system provided food for the vulnerable while reminding Israel of God's mercy. Ruth, eager to provide for Naomi and herself, asked permission to go to the fields and glean. With Naomi's approval, Ruth set out into the fields to glean behind the harvesters, collecting leftover stalks of barley. Providence guided her steps to the field of a wealthy landowner named Boaz, a relative of Elimelech. Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted his workers with the words,
"The Lord be with you."
They answered,
"The Lord bless you."
Even in these simple words, his faith was evident in his speech, and his character would shine even more brightly. Noticing Ruth among the gleaners, Boaz asked,
"Who is that young woman?"
The overseer replied,
She's the Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from Moab. She's been working steadily since morning, hardly taking a rest.
Boaz looked on thoughtfully, impressed by her dedication. He walked over to Ruth and spoke kindly.
Listen, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field or leave this one. Stay close to my young women and keep your eyes on the parts of the field they are reaping. Follow them closely. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And if you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn.
Boaz's words show remarkable protection and provision. He was aware of her vulnerability as a widow and a foreigner, and he ensured she could glean safely and with dignity. Ruth fell on her face, overwhelmed.
Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?
She asked. Boaz replied,
I have heard of all you have done for your mother-in-law, how you left your own land and family to care for her.
He blessed her sincerely, saying,
The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge.
Ruth felt a warmth of reassurance and protection in his words, sensing God's favor resting upon her through this kind and honorable man. Later, Boaz instructed his men to allow Ruth not only to glean among the sheaves, but also to pull out stalks for her deliberately. Ruth gathered abundantly, about an ephah of barley, nearly 30 pounds. When Ruth returned home and showed Naomi the grain, her heart began to stir with hope. She asked where Ruth had gleaned. On hearing it was Boaz, Naomi exclaimed,
May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead. The man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers.
The word redeemer refers to the Hebrew concept of kinsman redeemer, goel. According to Israelite law, a close relative could redeem a family member in distress by buying back land, rescuing from slavery, or marrying a widow to preserve the family line. Naomi began to see the possibility of redemption unfolding. As the days passed and the final sheaves of wheat were gathered, Ruth continued in her steady rhythm, rising early, working diligently in the fields of Boaz, and returning home with grain for Naomi. Her devotion was evident not only in her labor, but in her humility. Still, as the harvests drew to a close, Naomi knew that a greater need remained. Daily bread could sustain them for a season, but Naomi longed for something more permanent for Ruth, rest and security. In ancient Israel, a woman's future was bound up with the household of a husband. Without such a covering, Ruth remained vulnerable, despite her strength of character. Naomi's heart, filled with maternal affection, could not rest until she sought a lasting home for her daughter-in-law. One evening, Naomi said to her,
My daughter, it's time that I found a permanent home for you, so that you will be provided for. Boaz is a close relative of ours, and he's been very kind by letting you gather grain with his young women. Tonight, he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor.
Threshing floors were open, flat places where harvested grain was separated from chaff, often accompanied by festivity and feasting at the end of the season. Boaz, as the landowner, would be there personally to oversee and protect his harvest. Naomi devised a bold plan, and then she counseled Ruth.
Wash yourself, anoint yourself, and put on your cloak. Then go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what to do.
To modern ears, the instruction may sound unusual, but in their context it carried no hint of impropriety. Rather, it was a symbolic act of submission and request for protection. By uncovering his feet and lying there, Ruth would be humbly placing herself under Boaz's authority, asking him in essence to spread his cloak, his covering over her, a gesture tied to marriage and covenant. Ruth's answer was simple, full of trust.
All that you say, I will do.
That night, Boaz's heart was merry after eating and drinking. He lay down at the end of a heap of grain, content after the harvest. Quietly and with great care, Ruth did as Naomi had instructed. She approached in the stillness of the night, uncovered his feet, and lay down. At midnight, Boaz was startled awake. Turning over, he discovered a woman lying at his feet. Startled and uncertain, he asked,
Who are you?
Ruth answered with courage and humility.
I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer.
Boaz responded with deep respect.
May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. For everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman.
The phrase virtuous woman in Hebrew eshet chayil is the same used in Proverbs 31:10 of the virtuous woman. Ruth's reputation for loyalty, diligence, and faith had become known in Bethlehem. Yet Boaz revealed an obstacle. Though he was willing, there was another relative closer in line to redeem Naomi's family. According to the law, that man had the first right to marry Ruth and redeem the property. Boaz promised to resolve the matter the next day. Still, he solemnly promised that if the man refused, he himself would redeem Ruth. To preserve her reputation, Boaz instructed Ruth to remain at his feet until morning, but to leave before dawn, so others would not misinterpret her presence. Before she left, he filled her cloak with 6 measures of barley, a generous gift symbolizing his intent to provide for her. When Ruth returned home, Naomi eagerly awaited her. Ruth recounted all that had happened, including Boaz's promise and the gift of grain. Naomi, with wisdom and faith, reassured her.
Wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today.
Early the next morning, Boaz went to the city gate of Bethlehem, the traditional place of legal transactions and judgments. He sat down, and when the nearer kinsman came by, Boaz called him to sit as well. He also gathered 10 elders of the city as witnesses. Boaz began by presenting the matter in terms of land redemption.
You know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She is selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should speak to you about it, so that you can redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, then buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. But if you don't want it, let me know right away, because I am next in line to redeem it after you.
Hearing this, the man readily expressed his willingness.
All right, I will redeem it.
Redeeming land was a gainful opportunity. It expanded his estate, enhanced his standing, and kept property within the family. But Boaz then added the crucial detail, the second part of the obligation.
Of course, your purchase of the land from Naomi also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite widow. That way she can have children who will carry on her husband's name and keep the land in the family.
At this, the man reconsidered. He said,
I cannot redeem it for myself, because this might endanger my own estate. You redeem the land. I cannot do it.
His refusal may have been due to fear of dividing his estate or the challenge of marrying a Moabite. To seal the decision, he removed his sandal and gave it to Boaz. This was the ancient custom in Israel for confirming a legal transaction. The sandal symbolized the transfer of rights. Boaz declared publicly,
You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and to Mahlon. Also Ruth, the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day.
The people responded with blessing.
May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephrathah and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that the Lord will give you by this young woman.
Thus, at the city gate, redemption was secured. What began with famine, loss, and grief was now transformed into covenant, hope, and blessing, watched and affirmed by the community of God's people. So Boaz took Ruth into his home, and she became his wife. The Lord blessed their union, and Ruth became pregnant and gave birth to a son. Then the women of the town rejoiced with Naomi.
Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life, and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him.
Naomi, once bitter and empty, now held new life in her arms. She took the child, laid him on her lap, and became his nurse. And the neighbor women said,
Now at last Naomi has a son again.
They named him Obed, which means servant. Obed would grow up to be the father of Jesse, who in turn became the father of King David. Through Ruth, the foreigner from Moab, the lineage of the Messiah was preserved. The story of Ruth teaches us profound lessons about faith, loyalty, and God's providence. One of the clearest lessons is that true faith often begins in courageous surrender. Ruth left her homeland, family, and gods to follow Naomi and the God of Israel, a God she did not fully know. Her decision to trust and serve God, even in uncertainty, demonstrates that faith is not just belief. It is obedience, trust, and action. From Ruth, we learn the importance of steadfast loyalty, selfless love, and courage to step into the unknown while relying on God's guidance. Boaz also teaches a vital lesson about faithfulness and integrity. Through his protection, kindness, and generosity, he shows that true love honors others, safeguards dignity, and acts righteously even when it requires personal sacrifice, showing how love and justice can coexist. Naomi's journey from emptiness to fullness demonstrates the gospel itself. Her story reminds us that life can bring seasons of suffering and disappointment. Even the faithful may face loss, uncertainty, or feelings of abandonment. Yet Naomi also shows that despair is not the end of the story. When she returned to Bethlehem, she encountered restoration through Ruth's loyalty and Boaz's kindness, both of which were guided by God's unseen hand. Naomi's life illustrates that God can turn bitterness into blessing, emptiness into fullness, and loss into unexpected joy.